Hello. Oh, sorry, I was a few minutes late there. Just a little bit of technical difficulties logging in. Welcome, welcome. I'm Daniela Saioni, and today I am here. Actually, someone's comments on my last story editing talk kind of led me to come up with two. Oh, no. There's an echo. Boom. Is this better? Tell me it's better. There was an echo. Tell me if there's an echo. I see there's one person here. Just let me know if there's an echo. That was strange. Sorry about that. Should be better now, right? I'm going to put comments on so I can see. Can you hear me without an echo? Let's cross fingers and hope so, and somebody can tell me if it's not the case. I'm here. Yes, so I had I love when people post comments on my videos because it gives me ideas for other videos. And for those who don't know me, I'm Daniela Saioni. I have a number of screenwriting and script supervision and story editing programs. I know script supervision has not that much to do with writing at all, but that's sort of the world that I work and teach in internationally, and every year I do an annual cohort of my Story Editor Studio program. We're entering our 6th year, and I've seen a lot of story editors find their voice. The goal of that program is for you to find your voice as a story editor. And so I want to dispel some myths about story editing because last week somebody posted well, because he was asking me about, like, the major problems I see with writers, the most common problems, and I identified it. He's like, "Well, I already do that." So, there's a very common, I wanna say misconception, probably the best word for it, that if you're good at the craft alone or aspects of the craft, specifically story, that you would make a great story editor and you'd probably make a great living at that. That is unfortunately not the case because of the whole breadth of what we do as story editors. We are not, and at which I use the term story consultant and story editor interchangeably. We have different terms around the world. I have students in the UK who call themselves script editors. To me, that sounds like you're just correcting grammar in a script. So I don't use that term. I use story editor, but in the WGC, which I'm a member of, we have to say story consultant when we're working on feature films because story editor is also a junior position in a TV writer's room. That's not really the kind of story editing I'm talking about. I work one-on-one with clients developing their TV series and their feature films at the development stage more often than not, or just about when they're about to go into production, as opposed to being a junior story editor in a writer's room. Much respect to the junior story editors in a writer's room. They do provide a lot of the same skill sets and a lot of support for their writers. So let's talk about what makes for a good story editor. If the craft alone or certain aspects of the craft alone are not going to help you to be the best story editor you can be, what do I think it is? And I'm saying this not only from my own experience in Canada working as a story consultant. I do have international clients, but mostly more so as someone who trains story editors. I have one of the few certification programs in the world, and I'm really, really proud of that program. And at the end, we'll talk about it because I'm still casting for it. Our next cohort, I do one a year because it's very labor intensive, starts on January 25th. But even before we get to, there's many editors who have trained at other places or they've never trained at all and they're building their story consulting practice. And cheers to you if that's you. It's a we're called to this, right? It's a totally for us, it fulfills something in us. And I guess they talk more about what I think the qualities that will help you work more. The qualities that I think I possess, but also some of my best students possess, the ones that work the most and have the most interesting projects they work on. Let's first talk about what a story editor is. I know I've done full videos on that topic, but just so you know, I define a story editor as someone who can see the potential in a work, in a script, and understands, it takes the time to understand the writer's vision so that they can work with the writer to extract the project's maximum potential according to the writer's voice. We're never trying to change or impose ourselves on the writer. We're trying to be kind of the wind beneath their wings. We're trying to be we're the closest thing in the writing screenwriting industry to a coach. So we coach a project, but we coach a writer to get their maximum, to get to do their best work in the project. That's the way that I've always looked at my work as a story consultant. In Canada and in some other countries, some of the funding bodies will require the writer to bring on a story consultant at a certain stage, and that's to accelerate the development, to give them a guide, to give them a coach, to help get the script to market faster at a higher, hopefully at a higher level. Just make it market ready faster. It's interesting. I got to take a dramaturgy course this year with Canada's amazing Brian Court. Amazing. One of the things that I saw in terms of the process of dramaturgy in theater and how it relates to like a lot of the similar qualities of what I think make a great story editor make for a great dramaturg. But the thing is that theater you have more time. You have a lot more depending, but you have a lot more time to develop. Whereas in Canada, I mean, sometimes really we're guilty of stretching out development a bit too long in Canada. But normally, I mean, the once a story editor is brought on, there's not usually as much time to organically build the project from scratch with the writer and maybe with the actors as dramaturgs more often get a chance to do than screenwriters. So that was something as story editors. There was something really interesting about trying to understand that process more. I don't know if other story consultants are experiencing this, but for example, when the work slowed down a couple of years last year, I guess a year and a half ago, because of industry-wide strikes, people were still developing content in Canada. We weren't on strike, so there was still work, but I was getting more requests for dramaturgy, which was new to me. That's not a medium that I normally work in. So I've already been a dramaturg on two plays in development, which was really super exciting. But I got to use sort of my perspective on my work in that work as well. Um, so yeah, and because of that aspect of our work, and listen, that's the part that's going to get you hired. Yes, you absolutely need good craft in the sense of not necessarily understanding story, because story is bigger than any kind of formula, okay? We all learn and know the formulas that the industry expects and blah, 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 but we have to remember there's a big wide world out there. There's a variety of perspectives. You'd never wanna quash the new voice that is making discoveries and interesting thing, and also, like, it's our formulas in Hollywood are very culturally biased, right? If you read other paradigms of storytelling, some of my Aboriginal students were telling me there's a circular narrative, right? It's a different structure, and we need to be able to embrace and be open to things that are not formulaic as story consultants, while still helping that script find its market and its audience, by clarifying. So we clarify, we communicate, we listen, and we apply, we diagnose. So when I say diagnose, again, it's not with a you have to be fast and you have to be able to see where you can help a writer, but that is not based on any formulas. So all the sort of craft things are learnable for sure, but they are ever evolving. And the more important part of the equation for our work as story consultants, aka story editors, is to be able to really see the vision that the writer has, where they are at on a technical level, and be able to give suggestions that will lift them up and lift the project, and without demoralizing the writer, because then they'll never finish the project, right? They'll never be able to get it to the stage. If and I've seen it, I've seen quote unquote bad notes. Bad notes don't necessarily mean notes that have no understanding of craft. I've seen notes like that too, and I'm talking about when people get coverage from film festivals, which is not the same thing as being a story consultant, right? It's that's like here's some notes. Here's my perception. Not to diminish the work of people who do coverage. It's important work too, but it's different work. A story editor is usually you're working on multiple drafts. You're seeing the before and after of people applying your notes or their own notes or their own discoveries on a over time, right? Over through the development project. And yes, it is possible to hire a story consultant for just one draft or one leg of a project, but typically the kind of relationships I have with my writers, it's multi phase, just, because if you're being hired for film, oh, I forgot to say, I'm really blessed to have taught at some of Canada's most interesting places to teach writers. I taught at the at the Pacific Screenwriting Program as a story editing coach and a punch-up coach. I have lectured at PEI Screenwriters Boot Camp, and I'm about to be one of the mentors at the Writers Lab, which I'm super excited about. That's the Meryl Streep and Nicole Kidman backed writing lab for screenwriters over 40 who are female and non-binary. Super exciting. And of course, many of you know me from years of seeing me at the Female Eye Film Festival, where I was a live story editor. And that is a really fast. If you saw me do that, that's like giving notes in the moment from a portion, like 30 minutes of a script, and being able to diagnose, okay, what can this writer and this script use just after talking to the writer for a few minutes, hearing a live read, maybe reading the whole script. We often don't read the whole script in that series. In my work as a consultant, of course, I do read the whole, interview the writer more substantially before and give them my notes after. It's a much deeper process, but those live story editing things are a really great way for story consultants to flex their muscles and really really experiment with and I don't mean to say we're experimenting with the writers, but we meet all different writers. We need to be able to be super flexible in working with all different kinds of creatives and writers and voices. And so the more basically the more you can do with all different, especially, and it's okay to want to serve just one audience. I tend to serve women and people of color the most. I have plenty of male clients as well, but I tend to gravitate towards that audience and the queer audience because that's my world. That's my world. That's my life experience. You don't necessarily have to hire the story consultant with the life experience that your script has, but sometimes you have more than one that you meet along the way. It helps if it helps if there's an understanding of the kind of story you're going to tell. Absolutely. There are times I've been hired because I'm not in of the world of the story, and the writer wanted to be clear, or the producer also wanted to be clear that an audience who's not of the world of the story could understand that on a commercial level. So you don't necessarily have to be aligned. It really does help. That's why I think we need more story editors that are more different kinds of stories. But even in our group, you'll see on my YouTube channel, I've got some interviews with some of my alumni, and I asked, for example, Leandro Matos, who is Brazilian. I said, "Do you think it's important to have diversity in the writers' room?" And he made an incredible point. He said, "We always need diversity in the writers' room. It doesn't matter if it's a quote unquote diverse story. Diverse perspectives bring some unique magic to a project." And I have to say that was a very incisive take on it. Yes, that's absolutely a great way to look at it. But still, it's nice to have representation across. Anyway, all that to say, a great story consultant needs to have hopefully worked with all different kinds of writers. It helps you diagnose any issues. 'Cause for me, for example, I very often come across. I very often work with new writers, and new writers sometimes don't have an experience of developing character unless they're actors. There's a lot of actors make great writers, but a lot of the writers who are not actors will not have an understanding necessarily about direct developing character, because in North America, especially, we're so focused on plot structure. Yay, it's great if you understand story and whether you do it intuitively or not, but if people don't trust you, if people don't trust you to give them the notes and help shape the story and listen to them, then the truth is that you won't really work very much as a story consultant. So that's the other thing. Besides the craft, which is absolutely a given, and listen, we're not there yet with AI, but sometime in the future, who knows? AI could diagnose, story issues on a formulaic level, not taking into account the plethora of different cultures and different, ideas and all that I don't think IA could handle that. There's a IA, sorry, AI. I'm an IATSE member, and I was just talking to my script supervisors. AI, not IA. Anyway, oh, I forgot to say, if you have a question along the way, feel free to type it in the chat, because I'll be happy to answer questions. I just wanted to iterate that if you it's kind of more important that you have the trust of writers more so than, the actual, I mean, the craft is important, but in terms of being a working story consultant, if you're someone who connects to writers, who knows writers, who they trust, and who has empathy, right? You've seen me say this. I had more empathy for myself as a writer after I began story editing because you understand a lot of the problems people face that may be similar or different from your own. But when because I use story editors, I work with story editors, on my projects, and I very much appreciate the sort of lifeline and perspective they give me on my own work. We all need another set of eyes, I believe. And even like the greatest writers need another set of eyes. But obviously, they need to trust you. You need to be able to listen to them and not step on their voice. Have Be able to communicate what you feel will bring out a great positive change in the next draft of the script in a way that they understand. So communication, clarity, empathy, not trying to undermine their vision, honoring their vision. Sometimes we're working with both the producer and the writer, and they may have different that gets tricky. They have different visions for the project. And so you have to figure out what the note behind the note is from the producer or from, let's say, a network or another body is giving you another set of notes that they want the writer to work on with your help. You want to find a way that is true to the writer. It's not, it's not like so easy. You can't plug it into ChatGPT and formulas. I think because of that, because of the qualities of story editors that will be in demand, that's why AI will not be replacing us anytime soon. I know that many writers don't actually work with story editors at the beginning because it's not something that you necessarily need to do until you're ready to until you're seriously bringing your script to market, and you just want to make sure it's as polished as it can be, and as industry standard, like meaning a standard of excellence, that because you're competing in a marketplace to sell it. That was sort of what I was noticing in the dramaturgy class I took. It's like they're more art driven than market driven, which is okay. I mean, I wish we had that kind of luxury on the scale that we work in films on, but we still need to be very market driven because ultimately we or maybe the word is audience driven, right? Audience driven, because a market is an audience. So it doesn't mean you have to, the screenwriter or the filmmaker, you don't have to please the world, but you have to, I think, find your audience, whether you know who your audience is or not, but you need a clear intention, so that you're speaking to, a good story consultant will understand the audience as well. What else did I want to say on this? Sorry, I could like go on and on about this. I'd love to take questions and also tell you more about my program, but finding that root cause of something that can be like a fix. When I say a fix, I don't think there's any right or wrong. I don't think there's like a correct answer. But there's maybe what feels right for the project, and you know it when you feel it. When you're talking through the notes and the process of like what the next draft is going to be, and you're asking questions. There's a lot of asking questions in this job, but it's also like asking the questions that resonate. That's why it's so much like coaching. It's so much like coaching, but it's like you're helping. It's like you're a doula of the script. That's really what it is. You're really helping helping the writer have a successful birthing of their script so that it is received with joy into the world, and that it lives. Sorry, that might be a little dark. So yeah, and as I know because I'm on both sides of it. I'm also a writer. As a writer, I'm really thinking. Sometimes I'm in the weeds of the minutia. I'm thinking like about the specific line of dialogue or the joke or the scene work. but sometimes there's a structural thing that I'm not seeing, or sometimes there's a character that even though I'm so character driven as a writer, there's sometimes something I'm totally missing that just even one good note can make a big change in my next draft of the script. And I always, always appreciate when that moment happens. And that moment can't generally happen like this, even though I know a bunch of you have seen me do stuff like that at Female Eye. On a deep core, level, it, it's more in that more intimate work I do with the writers, where we're having longer conversations and we're talking about their view of life and their philosophy and their view of comedy. Like, well, depending on the creative, I'll have different kinds of conversations with them. If I'm working with a filmmaker, so I've also been a screenwriter for hire, I will spend days with the filmmaker. I'll watch their films. I will talk through their goal for the next film, but mostly we talk about life. So there's a lot of that's needed. So if oh, hi to Lula, empathy is key. I had so much more for myself. I had so much more for myself in my own writing process once I started story consulting too. It's so easy to get lost in the weeds when you're looking at your story from the inside. Yes, Tallulah, Tallulah, you're one of my I can't remember who you are. I think you're one of my students, but anyway, you've been here before. Nice to see you. I just can't remember if you're one of our story editor studio grads or not. I recognize your handle is all, but it doesn't show you. Uh, but yeah, you do need that level of craft to understand the issues so that you can help, you can get to the root of the problem faster. But sometimes you don't have to do it fast. You have to do it faster than in theater. That's what I'm learning from dramaturgy. But you don't have to like do it like you don't have to put pressure on yourself to find it. Sometimes it does take a longer conversation and just being, experiencing the world through that writer or director's viewpoint. Because I often work with directors. Um, yeah. Sorry, I'm just seeing if I missed anything I wanted to say. We are professional listeners. We really are, aren't we? Um, to a large extent. We're listening with intent. We're not just listening. We're listening with an intent to understand the vision and then apply it to the craft, understanding that there's not one way. There's not one way to solve a problem, which is the fun part of this job and any job in film and anything creative, really. Um, okay. I read somewhere that that writers need to be emotional and that story editors need to be emotionally regulated, which I think is hilarious. It's like we're like the voice of reason. Maybe. I don't think there's one way to be a story editor. As long as writers trust you, as long as you can be present with a writer and really be able to see potential on the page. That's definitely something that I figured out I had early is reading something and seeing the potential. But of course, we need to talk to the writer. We need to talk to them to understand. I agree with empathy, but I've been a story editor and then was left uncredited, which is a real bummer. Are you union? Because they do need to credit us if we are in the WGC or the WGA. But yes, it's true. Very often, story editors do get uncredited. It's like, I say cry me a river because I'm also a punch-up artist. We never get credit. Punch-up artists, unless you're a staff writer on a TV show, we never get credit. And we're like, making the funny. We're bringing the funny, right? But I do get it. I do get that feeling. But you can negotiate better. By the way, in my program, I, I want to talk a little bit about it because there's so many misconceptions of the program. Someone said to me, "Oh, I don't know. I'm not good at spelling, so I couldn't be a story editor." Obviously, that's not what story editing is. It's one misconception. But another one is like. Uh, it's like it is a business. So it's not something necessarily that you get hired for unless you are a development executive. And we've certainly had development executives in that program. It was kind of also for them because development executives don't have very many places at all to train in this stuff. The thing about the structure of that program, I give you 10 hours of practicum, of the practical training, of craft training, but we do 7 weeks of practicum because and that's over on 14 scripts. Because I think to develop that diagnostic ability, also to develop the confidence to give people notes and to develop the practice of listening, you need to work on a variety of projects and also, in a short amount of time, different genres, different, types of projects in a condensed amount of time, and that's where the actual, like, I think that where I really see transformation in my story editing students and my, development executive, it's just the practice of doing it for 7 weeks in a row on 14 scripts. They apply the craft. Like I said, craft is very learnable, but what's not learnable is the flexibility around it and understanding that craft is a tool that there's a whole world of storytelling that you can incorporate that's outside the norm or the formulaic things about. As long as there's structural integrity in terms of it's organic to the characters. That's very much my bias as a story editor. People know that about me. If they're coming to me, they know that I'm going to focus a lot on character because I think so much rides on the integrity and the interestingness of the characters, the design of the characters. So much rides on that I'm going to be probably going deeper into that than a lot of people. And listen, you also got to know that I embrace all different types of story editors, and I encourage the people in the program to find their voice. If you can't find your voice in a short amount of time like that, you go from January 25th to March 29th without doing it, just doing it over and over again. And we do get very professional writers giving us scripts to work on. Of course, people in the program, some of them are very professional writers. I had a 20-year network exec last year, and then I had meaning she'd been in the business as a network executive for 20 years, and then I've also had producers who've done multiple multi-million dollar features in the program that also had a story consulting sideline or just wanted to make better choices in terms of how they chose a script or how they developed a script with the writer. Um, Matthew, I'm editing my script at the moment, got it down from 120 to 115 pages. Well, of course, length is important for marketability for sure, but obviously it's not it's not that's not necessarily going to be the thing. I mean, if you got it down to that more marketable length, depending on your genre. And I've worked on huge movies, not as a story editor, as a script supervisor, where we had like 160 pages. If you look at the scripts for A Simple Favor and A Simple Favor 2, when we shot them, like the timing was well over 2 hours. Obviously, in comedy, it's a thriller comedy, but obviously in comedy we shoot much more so that we can cut out later. But not a lot got cut out of those movies. But for those genres, the length it wasn't about that. It was about the integrity of in a thriller, in a psychological thriller like that. And I can't wait to see Paul's new movie. I didn't work on that one, The Housemaid, because that was shot in New Jersey. But I can't wait to see how tightly wound, the unraveling of the facts are. In certain genres, so, non-union. Okay, so even if you're non-union, you can negotiate for a credit. The thing is that we're always at the mercy of the producer can't guarantee anything. They can make best efforts to give you a credit for sure. That could be something that you spell out in a contract. But because producers are behest to the network or the distributor, or there's so many things that happen along the way in the development of a script, if you're non-union, they can't guarantee your credit. The union will actually put their feet to the fire, yeah, a little bit more, which is good. That's why unions were invented, right? To protect the writers. But even so, like and we're allowed to choose our credit. So in the contract, in my union contract, it says story consultant, but the credit I prefer is story editor. It's just the credit I always had, even when I was non-union. So it's weird to go story consultant for me, but of course it's the same job. It's just like even I have a student in the UK who's brilliant, by the way. He was in my class last year, and he said he's working on 18 scripts right now. He said he switched his title from script editor to story editor because even though in the UK it is called a script editor, he's like, I like your reasoning for why you need to say. story editor. But yeah, there's some training in negotiation and setting up your business, but really, as a story editor, you're building your clientele one project, one writer at a time. So there are ways to accelerate that, which I teach you guys in the class, of course. Doing events like I do, like showing up to live events and live story editing and giving people notes. I have one of my very brilliant alumni is named Ali Turco, and Ali will often do the same thing, give people notes. She feels like a lot of us when we start out, we really underprice ourselves. I was guilty of that too. It is a lot of work, as the people who do it know, and we have this tendency to undervalue ourselves, and no good, no bueno. We got to learn to ask for what we're worth, and it doesn't have to be astronomical, but it's about the impact, the creative impact a good story consultant will have on a script. It's like I have a creative coach, not for writing, but just for inspiring me to be a more creative human. He's also my business coach. He's a phenomenal human who coaches a lot of actually big female musicians, actually. But like, some people benefit more from coaching than others, but you don't know until you actually go through the process what a difference it makes. And of course you have to connect with the person. I could be like not the right person for someone. I could probably recommend someone who is the right person for someone because I have so many brilliant students. Tallulah, I still think you're one of mine. I just can't remember who you are. But anyway, like so many brilliant ones that I will connect people to because that's the other thing. No matter what, if you possess all these qualities, if you don't have the chemistry with the writer, or the producer or the director, whoever's hiring you, it's not going to be totally. I won't say the name of the actor because she. We were filming a movie, and the actress was holding back, and the director could feel it. And about a week in, she started to get really good. And he said, "What changed?" And she said, "I finally trusted you." And he's like, "We've been shooting for a whole week." And I said to the director, "This is what happens when we eliminate as the script, I was the script supervisor in this scenario. I said, this is what happens when we eliminate rehearsals in modern day filmmaking. They've cut so much out of prep, and cutting rehearsals is one of them. That's a sidetrack story about script supervision, but it's relatable. Like imagine how much time you lose when you can't trust the person you're working with, or that person doesn't trust you. So I teach you guys in the course how to develop that trust in the initial meeting. Of course, it's so important. It's so important. What else? Did I leave anything else out that I wanted to say? Um, yes, we got to learn. We have to be able to negotiate for ourselves. Obviously, I mean, I know plenty of working story editors who are not great negotiators. I think at that point, I've never tried to have a writing agent or a story a consulting agent. That would be really fun to try. I had a student last term in Australia who's got an agent for her story consulting. So, I mean, she's quite a seasoned producer. So he'll just send her projects, and without it, he's already pre-negotiated everything for. That's a dream. I've actually never done that. That would be kind of fun. Any agents out there who have clients like that, let me know. I mean, I should start to do the research. I'm so like, I'm always just moving forward in my careers without doing it the way that the industry tells us to do. You're yes, a perpetual student. Okay, I think I know who it is, but I can't remember. I don't want to. I don't want to say the wrong name, but I recognize your head. Yes. I'm a perpetual student too, by the way. Like I said, I just took a dramaturgy course. Here I am, turning 57, still taking classes because I think a lot of people who teach also I get a lot. I learn a lot when I teach, but I also learn a lot when I'm a student. So I keep going. Okay, what else did I want to say about this? But you guys are getting the picture. There's a whole kind of vibe to this job, and not everybody. And it doesn't have to be one kind of vibe either. Meaning, like everyone's different. You should be who you are because that's going to resonate with the people who need you the most. And so, with Story Editor Studio, which is my program that I'm casting for right now, I've accepted 7 people this year, really, really good 7 so far. Most years we get a lot more Americans and Europeans. This year it's all Canadians and 1 UK person. We might have an Australian joining us, we'll find out. Apparently he's gonna call me, but I haven't heard from him yet, but, um, I will sometimes get Australians and New Zealanders and, anyway, I'm very excited, but I still have up to I don't think we're gonna have 13 more, but I will never take more than 20 in that program, so we have up to 13 more. I would like to have 3 to 5 more, and, I don't know where the Americans are this year. It's funny, my American students will sometimes say to me, that there's not as much work in the US, which has got to not be true because you guys have at least 10 times the amount of writers that we do in most, countries, certainly Canada. So maybe they're not employing story editors to the way that we do in Canada. I'm not sure. What's the first thing you look for when editing a screenplay? Well, the first thing I look for is the writer. So I meet the writer first, and I talk to them, because I wanna see if we connect on a creative level. I wanna understand their skill level, and they don't like I said, I work with so many first-time writers. It's not about their skill level, but I need to understand it in order to be able to help them. I need to understand their worldview. So the first thing I look for is the person who wrote it. So when people are interviewing me, like if they've gotta, like, attach a story consultant for their, telefilm project or whatever, I will meet them first. Doesn't matter if listen, I've been offered jobs where it had full funding, but I did not, also read the script and was not, I didn't think I could help them, put it that way. So it's not about money for me 'cause I'll work with someone else that maybe has less money, but it more is more aligned with how I can help them, you know? So that's the first thing I would say is do I align with the writer and or the project? Very important that both things are true for me. And then based on what I know about the writer's needs, and what they're going for and what I can read on the page and what I can see it as a potential, I'll lean into the biggest challenge for them. So, like I said to the person who wrote last week, yes, there is, sometimes it's very clearly the character work, the fix is the character work. So, it's not necessarily gonna mean a page 1 rewrite at all. Sometimes it does, but rarely at the point where they're hiring story editors, it's rarely that. But you know, for me, I'll think of what the biggest aspect that they need help with, and I'll start with that, when editing a screenplay, and then everything else will sort of fit into that. Tanya, watching this on YouTube and LinkedIn. Technology, yes. Yes, I'm using StreamYard, which I love. I could theoretically also go onto Instagram, but it's messy. Sometimes I'll put my phone, you know, here and do Instagram, but then you see me shift island. So I'm happy here on YouTube and LinkedIn. Tanya, another story editor studio alumna. Any questions for me? There is an interview process for that program because y I you need to have some understanding of writing. Often I get very seasoned screenwriters in there. Sometimes I get newer screenwriters, but they, work with writers closely, like maybe they're an assistant in a writer's room, or maybe they've got like a BFA in screenwriting, but they wanna get some real world hands-on experience with real writer not that we're not real writers when we're in university, we are, I mean, experienced writers, you know? Writers with all different problems. Not that we don't have all different problems in university too, but you know what I mean, I think. Do you have to do coverage as part of the editing process? No, it's very different. So coverage is a different skill. Very often, people who take my class have done coverage as like a side hustle. Listen, there's people, you know, film festivals and stuff will pay you whatever it is, 20 bucks an hour US to it's a very underpaid work coverage, and it's kind of banal. Again, I'm trying not to dismiss coverage people who do coverage, because it's a needed thing in the industry. I don't mean it like that. I mean, that work doesn't interest me, and, it's not part of mean, I guess to some extent, the where it overlaps is, when you're thinking of the diagnostics, but when people do coverage, they're generally not interacting with the writer to the extent that we are, so they're not understanding the big picture. They're looking at it on the page as an entity of itself, not connected to the creative voice that wrote it, not connected, which has its value too, by the way. There's some value in that. And coverage also reiterates the plot, to the, and we don't necessarily do that. We'll iterate what we understood from it, for sure. I was working as the script supervisor with a new showrunner who's a playwright named Julia May Jonas, and I said, "Oh, Julia, I'm going to be doing this dramaturgy workshop. So when in your theater life, what do you look for in a dramaturg, or in the story?" Because she had about 10 different story consultants on the show we just did, where I script supervised. She said, "I just want to know," and like every writer will want something different from you. She said, "I just want to know what people got from it. What are they receiving from what I've put out?" Which, yes, there's value in that. A story consultants will go beyond that, but that for her, that's the most valuable thing. Coverage is different. It's just it can be a step along the way to story consulting, but it's a different thing, tangibly different. Okay, cool, Tanya. Oh, nice, nice. Oh, so Tanya, you're Tallulah. Okay, I thought it was someone else in LA. Matthew, in your experience, what's the most common issues? I think were you the one who asked me that last week, and we had the discussion. I said it was, or we had the back and forth, that it's the character. It's more often than not, it is the lack of understanding about character work. That's more with new writers, but I do work with a lot of new writers because more and more new writers are getting projects into development, which is super exciting. It's super exciting, but often not a lot of people are teaching character work, and unless they've acted before, they don't have a clear sense of how to develop characters. So, and it is a very individual process. It's just that they don't have a process to begin with. So that's sort of the most common, and that's often where I start because I'm so cognizant of character work, Um, but, there's many there are any problem can come at you, and you can find many different problems. That's why I encourage people to work with, like, an array of writers in a short period of time, so you can see the array of, there are some recurring issues for sure, but it's best to experience them in script form, when you're going through a script. As Tanya can attest to, she was in the class. Were you in last year's? You were in last year's, Tanya, or 2 years ago. I can't remember. My God, time flies so much. So I'll still be interviewing until around January 10th. We start on the 25th. Every story editor in the cohort has the choice. Well, up to well, like we have to work on 14 projects. So up to 14 projects, people can choose to bring in a script either of their own or of one of their clients. We all sign NDAs and before we start working on them, and then we do the practicum, and then sorry, we do the training first, and then once we start the practicum, everything is scheduled out. So I need to make decisions about the writers in the class and the scripts we're doing by the sort of the third week of January. And I say the scripts we're doing because most of the time I am pulling in scripts from the community. So a lot of inksters in Canada people, my own screenwriting students, some of my clients will bring in, will make up the missing pieces of, like, if we don't have 14 full scripts. The thing is, if like every student in the class is bringing in a comedy, we got to balance that out with, like, okay, we need some horror, we need some TV pilots, we need some, science fiction. So I try to. So if you do submit a script to me, which you can, it's totally free to have your script brought through this process. For our screenwriters, our story editors to work on. If I don't program it, it's got nothing to do with your script because I like to program scripts like with all different problems and everything. It's not that. It's the I don't want to overlap genres, and I don't want to overlap. I don't want to do like all features. I want to mix it up. Yes, last year, wow, says Tanya. Oh my God. Yeah, and I mean it's intense, right? So I always say to people, prepare to do like 5 hours of work every week, plus our class is 3 hours on top of that. Tanya, would you say that that's about right? 5 hours to read and, do the story, to do an initial impression of the story edit for 2 scripts. We also pre the writers, who submit scripts so that we are working, to their voice, to their vision. And then so it is very labor intensive. So there's a reason there's a certification process. Tanya says, I've taken courses in writing coverage as well. It's definitely a different format and a different perspective. Generally, I think it's geared more for the producer's POV than for the benefit of the writer, but it can benefit the writer too. I'd love to hear more about your experience with dramaturgy too. Again, story is story, voice is voice, but different formats and perspectives, different skills, but always empathy and humanity. Yes, yes, you got it, Tanya. Yeah, I really recommend Brian's course. He's like a legend in Canadian dramaturgy. I took it at the Tarragon, but I took it online. He's taught at Banff. He's been the dramaturg on some big theater companies. With dramaturgy, you get the benefit sometimes, not all the time, of they'll workshop plays. We don't often workshop films, although sometimes we do. Like Paul workshop Bridesmaids, Paul Feig, before he shot it. Some directors will, and I interview on my channel. Oh God, I'm so blanking on his name. I went to film school with him. He's a comedy director in Winnipeg. I can't believe, sorry that I blanked on your name, but he's done like 12 features in Canada, and he does workshop scripts from time to time. And so your story editor would be in on that process with the actors if you have a story editor on board. Hopefully, you bring your story editor in on that process with the writer. But in theater, you almost always workshop a play. I mean, I can't think of an instance where you wouldn't. And the dramaturg is there and they're sort of representing the text more than anything else, but they will have a little bit more leeway into imagery, sound, and all the other theatrical components of a piece, the unspoken things. All right, I'll stay on for 10 more minutes if people have questions. Oh, do I have a link? Let me see if I can put up a link to, for those who don't know, you've probably seen my links everywhere. I have to get, I've got it, like, I've been recording a zillion testimonials from my script supervision students. I want to do the same from the story editors, but I still have the reel of written testimonials from my story editors. It really is one of the joys of my teaching world. I really, really love teaching it. Here it is. That's where you can read more about the course, bit.ly/story editor studio. It is only once a year. Yeah, just reach out. You can book well, you need to book a 20-minute Zoom with me because I need to pre-interview you to see if it's a good fit for you and me. Because I've had people that were overwhelmed, like for instance, a lot of script supervisors do very well as story editors, but some of them don't. So script supervisors have this magic of having the trust of big level like directors and producers in some cases. So they will often, in fact, I have a story editor coming into this cohort who is a script supervisor. Moonlight editor, check my edits. I want your reaction. Where were your edits? Sorry. To see am I good or not. I can't tell what your edits are and what you're talking about. I'm sorry. Um, you want your reaction. I don't know what you're talking about. Can you elaborate? Sorry, what was I just saying? Sorry. I always will do that. I get distracted. Okay. Sorry. What were we just saying? We were talking. Oh yes, I have. So I have a script supervisor coming in, but she started preparing. I said to her, "It's great that producers and directors trust you with this stuff, but you really need to learn about writing for writers to trust you with this stuff over the long term. I don't want people to not work because they don't speak the language of writers." So she spent the past 6 months training as a writer, which is like kudos, right? That's great. But you don't necessarily it depends. I've had people who are film jurors who don't have writing experience, but they have to talk to writers all day long, so they know. Um, yeah, Tanya says, "I agree. I wouldn't wanna spend less than 5-ish hours going over a script. I wanna read it at least once before I dig in." Oh, and Moonlight Editor, if you're talking about, I want you to check if I'm a good story editor or not. Well, that's part of what the program is about. So I mean, it's not that everything is learnable. Like, I might just be able to point you to your strengths and weaknesses through the process of, having you, give different writers notes. And by the way, we do notes verbally and on paper. So you can choose which how much to lean one way or the other. You should do at least 2 in writing, written notes, because your clients in the real world will want, they'll want both from you. They'll usually want both, but a lot of people more and more are leaning into verbal notes that are then, like, transcribed by machine on something like Otter, which is, transcribes our Zoom meetings. What else? Does anyone else have any thoughts? Any questions? You can disagree with me, by the way. You can be like, "No, story editors have to be the maverick on story." I'm basing this on what I have just from my experience doing this. The common problem I see in a lot of films is the inclusion of the unnecessary. Yes, and I mean, it's not it at some point, somebody thought it was necessary, meaning somebody thought it was somehow uplifting a certain aspect, like the theme and it didn't land. It ultimately didn't land. So someone at some point probably thought that it was necessary. By the way, in comedy, there are some things that are unnecessary on purpose. So one of the films I teach in my comedy feature class is Anchorman. And Adam McKay will often say things. Adam McKay and oh my God, I'm blanking on his name. Oh my God, the star of Elf, the star of Anchorman. Anyway, they will ask themselves when they're writing, "What's the weirdest thing that can happen?" So it's not necessary that he play the jazz flute, but in retrospect, it works because it upheld the integrity of the character in its oddness. So it wasn't unnecessary. It was a joyful detour, right? So there are some cases where taking chances on a detour works, and especially more in comedy, more commonly in comedy, we'll go there, but not always. I am making edits because I made a series called Moon Cinematic Universe, but it's a different type. You can say it's a what if. Oh, are you talking about picture edits or story edits? Anyway, I don't I'm just confused on what you're asking me. But, yeah, you can book me people can book me privately. I have a page where you can book me privately, but I'm pretty full up. If you guys don't know, my, mother is dying, so, I'm not really taking on a lot of story editing clients right now. I'll be back to full tilt probably in the spring. I'm just focusing. Oh, you can say both? Okay. I'm just focusing on my students right now because I can't let a year go by without doing story editor studio, but I'll have enough time to deal with them, but not with private clients. But yeah, sometimes people want an assessment, but the best way to learn if you're on a track, I mean, in my opinion, I'm just one person. There's many different opinions. Oh, it's okay. It's life, right? And many people my age, like I said, I'm turning 57, are going through this right now with their parents. But you guys probably know my mother is my muse. She's so hilarious. So I will, if you follow me on Facebook, you'll see like I'll put some of our conversations up just to she makes me laugh, and I will greatly miss that about her. Yeah. Sorry, guys. Sometimes I'll just cry spontaneously about it, but thank you. Thank you. Um, okay, well, I hope this helps somebody somewhere, and I hope you will consider my program if it's something that you're interested in. I'm always happy to answer questions on email, even though I can't really take on consulting clients for the next few months. But it is always easiest to work with me through my classes. It's cheaper than because I'm a union story editor. It's actually cheaper to take one of my classes than to hire me as your story editor. Not to say that I'm the world's most expensive story editor, because I'm not. But sometimes, because I work with so many new writers, people can't necessarily like afford to go to the union yet until they have their funding, which I understand. But I'm not, I won't work non-union, but I will actually be able to teach you stuff and work with you in class. And by the way, I have some amazing, amazing non-union story editors. Some are right here, right now, at this event. So I can always connect you to people, and this is in multiple countries. I'm based in Toronto. A lot of my top people are in Toronto, but I've got people, like, in all different countries. Like I said, I have this fantastic guy in, London who's brilliant, just brilliant. Australia, LA. But again, as a story editor, you can be anywhere and serve people in different countries. Okay, hope that has helped, and thank you for tuning in. I love, being able to just talk sometimes. Thank you so much.